Welcome back to Staked, the staking guide by Swyke, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Juri, head of product at Swyke, and today we're diving into an exciting layer one ecosystem we have been closely involved with for quite some time, which is Flare. Flare is truly a unique layer one blockchain that brings smart contract functionalities to ecosystems that actually don't natively support them, like Bitcoin, XRP, and a few others. And it also provides a tremendous way to bring important off-chain data on-chain, opening up new possibilities for DeFi and decentralized applications. And Flare is gaining real momentum in the space right now. And today we'll take a closer look at what makes it so compelling today. From its core architecture to the developers building the next wave of innovation on top of it. And to guide us through all of that, I'm joined by Max and Filip from Flare. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having us. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having us. And it's been an amazing journey so far with you. So, yeah.
Yes, likewise. The pleasure is mine. So before we get started, maybe like brief round of introductions. Max, if you want to start with talking a little bit about yourself, your background, and when you joined Flare.
Sure thing. So my name is Max. I'm head of growth at Flare. Been at Flare for about 3.5 years now. I've always been in kind of like an ecosystem growth role. My previous work was at a DeFi protocol, and I joined Flare to really kind of be part of the layer one team. And I was learning a little bit about Flare's progress and opportunities to provide smart contract functionality to non-smart contract token chains, and just got pretty excited from being from an EVM background. So that's a little bit about me.
What about you, Filip?
Hi, I'm Filip. I've been with Flare for a bit more than 4 years, so pretty much from the very start. So joined pretty early, started in engineering. Now I'm chief product officer. I've been helping with most of the products since the beginning, so both from the design and decisions and the main implementations of the FTSO, the Flare data connector, and I was able to get into all the nitty-gritty details and see how a blockchain like this can scale. And being a mathematician, it's really nice to see that we do have technologies that allow you to solve stuff and still be able to play around with them and see how you can evolve them.
Speaking of which, I mean, I mentioned a couple of buzzwords in the intro already to make sure that the YouTube algorithm feeds the hook a little bit. But let's get into the weeds here. Since you're like part of Flare for such a long time, Filip, can you talk a little bit about, like in a couple of sentences, for people who are new to Flare, what's basically the huge value add that you bring to the crypto ecosystem? Have there been any pivots along the way in the past couple of years? And where's Flare today?
That's going to take a while. But yeah, sure. Well, Flare is an EVM layer one blockchain. Nothing special there yet. But what we really double down is data available on-chain, and knowing that data is available on-chain in a secure way. So we started initially with the product called FAssets, which allows you to have delta-neutral synthetics directly on an EVM chain, specifically connecting non-smart chains. In that case, that is XRP Ledger, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and some others. And to do all this, we saw that you had to build a lot of infrastructure around it. And that meant that we had to initially design all the necessary stuff about pricing things so that you can have collateral properly set up. That meant that we have to design the FDC, which allows you to check what's happening on other networks so that you know that the underlying is not moving. And at some point, we saw that getting this additional data on-chain, allowing the liquidity to come from other chains, and still knowing that this is fully secure, fully is really the crucial thing that the blockchain needs. So I wouldn't call it a full pivot, but we moved from just FAssets to allowing other data to come to chain, be it Web2 data, be it data from other EVM chains, but we stayed core to the crucial component, which is security. So compared to, for example, the other oracles, we might have a bit slower response rate, but we make sure that all the data that is at chain at any point is there securely. So maybe the crucial component here is our validator set, which effectively doubles as a data provisioning set. So any validator, the block producer also has to provide data to the system, is always verifying the FDC queries, and is also providing data points in the form of prices on chain itself. So that's the crucial proposition of Flare, which is giving you access to data, giving you access to external compute in a secure way while still preserving this blockchain ethos. So wherever you get the data from, whenever you get the additional computations and the result, it's still at the same security level as everything else on the chain. So that's the core thing that Flare powers.
Amazing. And before I also pass the word towards Max and talk a little bit more about the DeFi ecosystem and everything, let's maybe take one step back again, Filip, and talk a little bit about the FAssets, because I think a lot of people in the community understand this as one of the big core features of Flare. So can you talk very briefly about how FAssets work under the hood? How does the magic source comes to play?
Yeah, so high level is quite simple. So you want to take a token on a contract chain, on a blockchain that does not have smart contracts, let's say XRP or Bitcoin, and you want to use it in DeFi. You want to use it somewhere where you have enough liquidity, somewhere where there's ecosystem that's big enough so that you can, earn a yield on it, put it into a liquidity vault, trade it for something, take a loan on top of it. So that means that you need a representation of this underlying asset somewhere else, somewhere on an EVM chain. So with FAssets, what we're doing is we're allowing you to get this representation and always be certain that you can get back to the main asset you have without having to worry about this. So there are multiple custodial solutions when you can just deposit XRP or deposit Bitcoin and trust somebody that they'll give you this asset back, which works unless the things stop working. So it's like with bridges. So everything is fine, everything is working until there's a downturn in the market, until there's some issue somewhere, until there's a security breach, or until somebody is using your funds in a way that they promised you they won't, but you can never know this, you can never observe this. So the secret sauce of the FAssets is the so-called agent system. And in the future, we're upgrading this to the protocol managed wallet. But the secret sauce is that we have an agents and we have a network observing what these agents are doing. So instead of you depositing XRP to a centralized third party, you deposit this to a third party that is providing collateral in the same or higher dollar value on a smart network. And this smart network, Flare, can act if the agent is doing something nefarious with your tokens. So if I want to get some FXRP, some XRP that I can use in a smart contract chain, I deposit this to an agent. The FAsset system issues me the ERC20 representation of this and always monitors, together with the challengers around it, always monitors the underlying chain so that my XRP is still kept in the agent's vault. And if the agent is doing something bad, something against the, let's call them rules of the system, in that case, we can punish the agent, take their collateral. This is over collateralized, so we also take some sort of a premium. And it's neither in the agent's interest to do this, and anybody else can now provide another XRP token to take this agent's place, or burn then their FXRP and take the XRP out, and again take this agent's place, and in that case stabilize the system again. So the secret sauce is we are able to combine two chains, one smart and one without smart contract functionality, and efficiently relay data and information between them, and thus pretty much close the loop. So Flare knows what the XRP is doing, therefore we can know that your XRP is either still being held on, or we know that your XRP has been deposited and we can issue you something. So that's the core proposition underneath. But I would give a few seconds to Max for him to explain why this is not enough, why you also need a network that has something else on top of this, so that this FXRP can be useful and you can do something with it instead of just hold it and keep it in your pocket.
Yeah, please go ahead, Max.
Sure. I mean, this is kind of moving towards like the importance of a DeFi ecosystem. And that's something that Flare has been very much focused on. The initial use case, as Filip mentioned, was bringing smart contract functionality to non-smart chains. Part of that is kind of relies upon a relatively comprehensive trading and money market solution that's available on the destination chain. For Flare, this has been something that we've been building out gradually over the past few years in preparation for the FAssets on the mainnet. So we have a number of different ecosystem projects that will enable users to do things with their assets once they bridge them to Flare.
Interesting. I mean, let's dive a little bit deeper here, actually, because obviously you mentioned it. There's definitely a demand for using Bitcoin in the broader DeFi ecosystem because it's the biggest crypto asset. I think there's also now a lot of appetite to use XRP in DeFi, as XRP gained a lot of momentum again. And it hasn't been like that widely adopted in the DeFi space compared to Bitcoin. There are a lot of wrapped representations of Bitcoin around in the space for quite some long time. So, Max, can you talk a little bit about the basically the necessity of having more basically wrapped representation in the DeFi ecosystem compared to what we have around in the space today, and also the demand from the other side? So why, for example, a non-EVM chain like Ripple wants to evolve into a DeFi landscape as well?
Sure. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to the holders of a token and what they would like to be able to do with their tokens. From my understanding, the XRPL would obviously love to be able to provide that additional utility for the holders of the token. At the moment, there aren't smart contracts per se on the XRPL. It's built as a different type of chain that doesn't support smart contract functionality. So Flare is a useful layer. And I think when you're talking about a lot of the wrapped offerings in the marketplace at the moment, a lot of them offer a custodial solution. What I mean by that is that you deposit your assets into a vault of some description on the base layer on XRPL or on the Bitcoin chain that maybe or may not be a multi-sig that's operated by a custodian or by the protocol itself. And once that kind of becomes in their control, the user doesn't necessarily have the same protections. The system takes a different form. With Flare, we've developed a system that is by definition non-custodial. It uses a set of agents that are over-collateralized, as Filip explained, and it's a smart contract-driven minting that takes place on Flare. And it relies upon the two native enshrined oracles that were developed for Flare to fulfill that use case, that functionality, which was to provide the bridging. Bridging needs proof of state and also proof of price. And those are the two oracles that are built into Flare, as Filip described earlier. The demand to use the assets, obviously, also if you're using it in lending protocols or isolated vaults, different types of yield trading platforms, even in some kind of like RWA issuance, CDPs, you'll need to be able to reference pricing. That's available natively on Flare. If you want to be able to prove that a certain amount of an asset was sent from one address to another on an external ledger like the XRPL, that can also be proved by Flare through its data oracle. So that's what we're seeing in terms of the proliferation of the ecosystem. We're just reaching the levels where we're able to provide similar trading and borrow lend functionality, money market functionality, as you would see on any kind of major EVM chain.
Amazing. So, Filip, would you basically argue that because of, for example, the Flare data connector, that this is basically this is like more or less the core pillar of making a DeFi ecosystem powered by Flare evolve? Is this like one of the main pillars that would power like an extensive DeFi ecosystem, for instance, also in other ecosystems like Ripple, for example?
Yeah, so this is, I would say, a core pillar why the DeFi ecosystem can be extended with something that's a bit different than you would call an ordinary DeFi ecosystem on another chain. So anyone can spin a new chain. Anyone can fork Uniswap v2, v3, put it on chain, add some liquidity. But I think the main direction that the industry as such and the blockchain itself is taking is that you need to have this cross-chain connectivity, and you need to be able to access the data and the liquidity from somewhere else. And this is that I would call it the connecting factor, which allows you to scale up and not just copy and try to, I don't know, push enough incentives so that you gather enough initial liquidity so that people start playing. I think this is the core thing that allows you to really scale the DeFi ecosystem and keep it sustainable, because you're connecting so far unconnected avenues, which now can really cooperate and do something new, do something better.
And how does that precisely work from a developer perspective? So say I'm a developer right now and I say, okay, I want to build something in the Ripple ecosystem. Like what developer language would I need to use for my application? And would, from an architecturally perspective, would it work like this, that I would basically build something on top of Flare, and this is kind of the EVM arm from Ripple, and via the oracles I would be able to communicate with the state of the chain?
Yes, indeed. It's pretty much the same. So for non-smart chains, you have this, let's call it one-way read-only communication. That's the simplest thing you can have. So you can access to things that people have paid to you on the XRP ledger. So you can process a payment on XRP ledger. You can process a token issuance on XRP ledger. You can process a payment on Bitcoin and then use this in a smart chain. Let's say you can then issue an NFT, issue a position. You can connect to Web2 data source and see that, I don't know, an institution has issued you something, or then there has been a settlement according to some predefined rule, and then issue something on chain, settle something on chain, or then communicate these to other chains. So we have connectivity to EVM when you can do a nice bidirectional connectivity. We're also connected via layer 0, and then you can pretty much distribute this information across the network. Take liquidity from somewhere, take information from the Web2 data source, and then combine it. So from a developer perspective, we pretty much allow you to access a much broader set of data sources and allow your application to act upon a much richer information set. It's more like you can still do the same thing as everywhere else. It's just that now you're not limited to an enclosed system. Now you're limited to whatever your imagination allows you. So that's the simplest thing. And then you can build on top of this a bit more complicated things if you're willing to play with some timeouts and some collaterals. And then you can do so-called read and write things and force somebody to, I don't know, pay you something on Bitcoin. And then you can have a system when you can then execute a transaction on the XRP ledger according to this Bitcoin transaction. And then you can have kind of like a bridge gateway between different chains, and then execute across them. That's the main point. From a developer perspective, we're just giving you a much richer API set, let's say.
Max, how does this basically position this Flare into the broader layer 1 landscape? So we have seen it. I mean, you have talked about your background in the DeFi ecosystem and the EVM ecosystem. I remember the times when we had these gigantic ecosystems popping up in 2020, 2021, 2022, all throwing around with liquidity grants, ecosystem grants, whatever. Everyone is basically building the same in different EVMs. Now this, what Filip described from a architecturally perspective, is like much different. It's like you can be basically, theoretically, how I understand it, on one connector, so to say, and it acts like a Kraken to bring smart contract logic to completely different ecosystem. So yeah, how does this Flare position this in the broader layer 1 ecosystem today?
I mean, I think the main kind of difference is the availability of assets on Flare that it will facilitate via the FAsset bridge, and the way that those assets can be put to work. Also the kind of development of different toolings to facilitate this cross-chain functionality, being able to control certain actions on Flare from other chains via a trustless kind of relay proposition is definitely something that sets Flare apart. And I think what you're going to start to see is kind of what we started out with in DeFi was a very elegant form of, automated market making, or, decentralized exchange functionality for swapping that kind of carried, often with, non-delta neutral assets, carried at risks of impermanent loss. I think where we're at now is we're starting to really build the structured products that you can find in TradFi. And one of Flare's main angles is basically facilitating the build out of those structured products, especially within the non-smart contract token realm. So enabling it initially for XRP, when XRP is somewhat limited in its functionality within the broader EVM DeFi ecosystems, is a major angle for Flare. And it's something that, I don't know if you saw about Vivo Power a couple of months ago announced that they were allocating 100 million of their XRP treasury, $100 million of their XRP treasury to Flare's DeFi ecosystem for effectively what we're calling XRP-Fi, which is the DeFi that you can perform upon XRP as economic security to earn yields and basically trade that asset on smart contract in Flare's ecosystem. That functionality is really something that we're seeing a lot of interest and excitement about. And I think, I don't know, we haven't really touched on it yet, but there's currently development of sort of verifiable off-chain compute on Flare's side. And I believe that is where we're going to really start to enter a new realm of more efficient, economically efficient structured products that are similar to TradFi, but operating on-chain via digital rails with Flare as the hub. The goal really is for Flare to become the DeFi hub for non-smart contract chain tokens. And so far along the journey, it feels like we're very much kind of fulfilling that goal.
This sounds amazing. Follow-up question on this from a growth perspective, and I believe you're the right person to ask this question. So the developer mind space is pretty much constrained at the moment, I would argue. It's very hard to onboard Web2 developers to Web3, like I would say harder than it was compared to 2021, 2022. So, and then if you're a developer, a lot of teams are incentivized to launch chains or do copycats. So what is like kind of the pull factor to bring all of this developer mindshare in order to build out this DeFi ecosystem to Flare? What would you argue is like the biggest pull factor for Flare besides its architecture, of course?
Well, okay, so there's a few angles. I suppose the first thing is that the technical support that builders coming to build on Flare can get is as far as I'm aware, relatively unrivaled. We have a vast tech team that is, really very much up to speed on the Flare ecosystem in particular, how to make use of the different protocols. And that support, along with the opportunities to build out products on the network using the kind of the fully integrated stack, developers being able to benefit from Oracle, price feeds that they can get for free rather than relying on third-party oracles, state data, the breadth of different use cases that it can fulfill, and the forthcoming technology are all kind of key factors. The other thing I would say is that our approach to grants has been relatively conservative. At the time when we were kind of really, building into the space, there were a lot of large grants, I think, that were flying around. And it was something that we observed and felt that it was important at that point to really double down on quality and really finding high caliber developers that had built things before, assess, the repos, the GitHub repos, assess the team, understand their business plan, and pursue quite a conservative route for finding projects that would be differentiated, that would make use of Flare's stack, and hopefully cultivate protocols that would dovetail with other growth initiatives on the network. We've been predominantly focused on DeFi because that is the use case that Flare really fulfills. It would be perhaps trickier for us to pursue other areas like GameFi or something along those lines if it was required to run games on the chain. So there's been quite a focused strategy on achieving where we think we can really add value. And I think it's developers who observe that, recognize that, and gravitate towards that we've managed to bring to the network.
Amazing. And maybe before I pass the word to Filip again, can you talk a little bit about some ecosystem metrics, some projects that you are excited about, that you work with these days, some MVPs that you want to shed light on?
Sure. I mean, look, over the past few years, there's been about 100 grants that have been awarded across 21 different countries, focusing on DeFi infrastructure and dev tooling. We obviously do make grants available, and for anyone who's interested in building on Flare and contributing to the network, we have a page on our website in the resources section under grants. And it's quite, it gives people or builders projects the ability to pitch and really kind of meet the team, understand the criteria, and put in some sort of building kind of liaising with actually also with other projects to kind of really focus on how to add value to the ecosystem. Some of the grants that we've given in the past, like Raindex, Kinetics, Sparkdex, Clearpool, have all really been great dApps. Especially there's a dApp called Cyclo that offers liquidation-free leverage. That's a very interesting build that I hadn't come across. In fact, it's a completely new type of primitive that can act as a wrapper around any asset, any ERC20. I think in answer to things that are being built out at the moment, one of the most interesting things for me is that there is a protocol that's building an eigenlayer style economically secured service protocol where bridged XRP in the form of FXRP from FAssets, FXRP, that can be put into the protocol, releasing an LRT, liquid restaking token, that can then be staked to services to fulfill other kind of, actions. Maybe it's relaying data to other networks, but it could also be used in insurance. And I think that is probably one of the most exciting kind of areas that's being built on Flare, is kind of extending the use cases for XRP to be used as economic security to secure other services.
Amazing. I mean, understanding that we have covered the data connector already, FAssets, Filip, and basically also understand the current state of the ecosystem, understanding the layer one landscape and where Flare is positioned right now. What are like some other additional rails to what we have talked about, the data connector, the oracles, the FAssets? What other rails are you basically working on right now in order to push the ecosystem even further, to build it out, to have even more capabilities to offer to developers in order to proceed building out this DeFi landscape that we have talked about throughout this episode?
Yeah, definitely. So those are, let's call them the basic building blocks. So giving you the information, giving you access to some external things, and giving you access to prices. So what I'm most excited about is the extension of the FDC to a custom compute via trusted execution environments. So this will allow you to not only issue a query to a specific blockchain, like we have in case of the Bitcoin or XRP ledger, but it will allow you to issue a query in an async way to compute whatever you need, and be assured that the whole network has indeed agreed that the underlying infrastructure, the underlying machine has been attested to, is running the correct version of a trusted execution environment, has signed correctly, is one of the approved hardware vendors, and so on. And this will allow you to pretty much extend the capability of smart contracts that you already have. And I'm really excited because this gives you this perfect combination of blockchain as a settlement layer, blockchain as a ability to get liquidity, blockchain as an ability to get reach to everybody around the world, together with the huge computation power wherever you need it, and also allow you to compute over private data. Let's say, okay, I want to aggregate some data, I want to have a nice insurance composed of some private data that's using, let's say, I don't know, historical healthcare data. I can do this. I can execute a computation on a private data, fully encrypted, and then just push the results to the blockchain. That's something I'm most excited about. So this ability to extend your reach of looking at an external APIs via the FDC to a fully trustless way of looking at them through the trusted execution environment. So we're extending both the FAssets system in such a way via the protocol managed wallet, and then generalizing this to a custom compute. So that's what excites me the most, and we've been working on this quite hard in the past. So I mean, we're shipping FDC. Other things are coming on the FDC and FTSO, and we're always thinking about what's new. We're always observing what the community needs. We're always observing what's happening around us, and we're always working with our grantees, listening to their wishes and thinking, okay, can we improve this by a bit more? Can we add something? So we had an amazing hackathon together with Google Cloud in the beginning of the year, exploring exactly these things. So how can you use a trusted compute off-chain and use the data on-chain to move something in a novel way? And that has proven to be quite a useful experience to see what people want to build, what is possible to be built, and what small things have to be added to blockchain to pretty much just explode the possibilities of what you can do. So that's what I'm most excited about. So extending, yet pushing the technology just a bit further.
Amazing. I mean, this all sounds super lovely. So Filip just talked about the hackathon that took place earlier this year. So Max, to wrap up this episode, I think we got a very great understanding of Flare's architecture, what makes it special, what additional roads are being built out, so to say. So where should people reach out? Where should people get started if they want to dive deeper into the ecosystem or start building?
So I think one of the best places to keep up with Flare is definitely on X. And hopefully, if people aren't familiar with the Flare website, it's flare.network. There's a number of links on there. The actual X address is Flare Networks, so plural networks. And I think if you're a builder and you're interested in partnering with the network, definitely drop us a line on there, or come and find us at one of the events that we're at or hackathons, and have a chat, and we'll be able to put something together.
Fantastic.
Well, one thing, definitely check dev.flare.networks, which gives you access to all our development resources, guides, and you can pretty quickly start playing around with things and see how you can easily include either the price or an external data source into your app. So if you want to start playing, this developer hub is a really good resource hub to just check it out and see what you can do.
Amazing. Then, guys, you heard it here first. As always, all of the mentioned links will be listed in the episode description, as always. With that being said, Max, Filip, thank you so much for joining this episode. Really got a much better understanding of the Flare ecosystem and its architecture and what's next. So with that being said, thank you once again, and hope to see you on the show very, very soon.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thank you. Bye.